So, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. My favorite game in the entire series. This was the first Resident Evil that I ever owned and completed, and I have a lot to say about it. As a longtime fan that has beaten this game countless times, it has kept me hooked for years on replays due to a variety of factors. I find the Raccoon City streets the absolute most memorable location in the series. The soundtrack has highs that other games did not reach in my opinion. Nemesis is one of the most iconic monsters in survival horror history, and Jill, well, put simply, she's a badass. And my favorite female protagonist in gaming ever. I will break down why I feel this way, and how the game never lost its initial spark from 2001 to now.
And I don't know how fake feel, nigga. Cause all my life I've been a real nigga. Say all my life I've been a real nigga. Yeah, all my life.
Despair, hopelessness, and panic. These are the words that come to mind when I think of this game. This is because while the two games that came before it had the luxury of being endorsed for majority of their games, Resident Evil 3 has you out in the city streets from the very start. The game flows very well and no area overstays its welcome. Some people may think the city streets drag a little on repeat playthroughs, but by the time I fixed the tram, I always was left with wanting more. Even though you do end up in a couple locations afterwards like the iconic clock tower, the hospital, and the Dead Factory, the game does a good job of never allowing you to ever feel safe. These are all unique locations, which further pushes the game's ambiance and just feeling hopeless with no way out with all these dying people around you. Throughout the game, you are running to freshly killed survivors with monsters feasting on their flesh as you run through the area. You may actually hear a few survivors yelling in a panic, only to get devoured before you can even reach them. All of this is accompanied by either the game's strong and solid soundtrack or just the eerie moans from distant zombies roaming the city. Between the fact that the streets are roaming with zombies, dogs, crows, brain dynamos, hunters, worms, giant spiders, and a gigantic giant worm terrorizing the streets and killing everybody that they cross paths with gives the game a certain adrenaline rush that was never replicated in the entire fixed camera angle era games in my opinion. I have to take the time out to say that the original Resident Evil 3 zombies are my favorite designs for zombies in the original fixed camera angle games. There is just so much variety with them wearing different clothes. There seems to be more female zombies as well, and I always found their moans very creepy. I actually really like the hunters' designs in this game, and the hunter gammas were always creepy to me. Brain dynamos I am indifferent with, but they are a good substitute for the lickers. They also show how the T-virus is beginning to cause more mutations in the city, giving off the impression that the city is truly past saving. The rest of the enemies are good, but more of the same from previous games, which isn't a bad thing by any means. To take that a step further, Resident Evil 3 has random enemy spawns in certain areas. Like, when you first enter the park area, sometimes you are greeted with worms slithering towards you trying to suck the blood from your body. However, in this exact same area at the same point in the campaign, there could be a couple hunters in this area with one of them sprinting at you upon entering. Another area during the city streets will sometimes either spawn several dogs that run at you at once, attempting to stun lock you with no other objective than to annoy me to death. Literally, in this exact same area, there will be around 6 to 8 zombies slowly walking towards you, with a stray zombie already closer to you where you enter the area. The last example I would give is after you get the vaccine in the hospital with Carlos and head to the first floor by elevator. When the doors open, you are greeted with either hunters that sprint towards the elevator the second it opens, or a pack of zombies that try to pow into the elevator as soon as the door opens. I won't give every single example in the campaign, but these kind of spawns are scattered across the entire game. This greatly adds to the replay value, since even after a while of playing, you will have an idea of what's going to spawn, but never be 100% sure. Due to this, you may end up underestimating an area and leaving behind health items or a stronger weapon, since you believe that you are going to be fighting a weaker enemy, only to end up fighting a pack of hunters and dying a horrible death. I also gotta speak on Nemesis. Y'all know I had to. He's basically a super tyrant in comparison to Mr. X and the one that appears in the original Resident Evil. He runs faster than Carlos and Jill and seemingly pops up randomly throughout the city streets. However, he will terrorize you through different boss fights after you get the tram running in the game. This guy is the main reason why you get an adrenaline rush in this kind of game, since he has a couple themes that play. One of the themes is very subtle, which lets you know that he is either about to pop out at you as early as a camera angle switch or after you go through a door. Sometimes, going into a save room with this theme playing and then exiting will be met with the second Nemesis theme playing. And it just comes out of nowhere to just scaring you. The theme itself is so iconic, and I have always loved it. He has a third theme that occurs later on when he mutates after the clock tower fight, and that theme goes crazy hard as well. Nemesis is so cool, so how can you hate the guy for real? Serious question. Realistically. Since I brought Nemesis up, what makes him so memorable to me is how ambiguous his encounters seem to be. I am not saying that they are random encounters, since they are clearly scripted, but they did a great job at the time making it feel as though he could pop up at any point of your playthrough, unlike the remake, unfortunately. Some examples are, you may be running down an alley and Nemesis drives down from the roof in pursuit of you. In the same breath, Nemesis may end up in the area with the city hall at that same point of the game on a different playthrough, and as usual with enemy spawns, you can kind of guess when he will show up, but every once in a while he'll just pop up randomly. He also drops ammo, weapon parts, first aid spray packs, and eventually an item to give a weapon infinite ammo. I rarely fight him anymore, but there is an incentive to down him if you want a specific item that he drops. The main boss in the game is Nemesis, but there are only 3 mandatory Nemesis fights in the game. The first being the infamous Clock Tower boss fight, which killed me so many times when I was younger and made me angry. In this boss fight, Nemesis infects you with the T-virus, so you cannot see your health status at all, since it'll just say virus. This makes the fight a little bit more difficult, since Nemesis can easily one-shot you if you don't make sure to heal yourself after taking damage, but at the same time making sure you don't run out of health items. The second boss fight is in the dead factory where the waste in the landfill ends up. In this fight, you can position yourself in front of a valve that can probably pour acid onto Nemesis and damage him. Other than that, this boss fight is similar to the Clock Tower boss fight in the way that you take him down, and of course you don't have the virus over your status. The final boss fight is at the end of the game before you reach the evacuation chopper. After pushing in one of the 3 batteries for the rail cannon, a disfigured Nemesis will drop down into the room and begin to mutate into his final form. Traditional weapons do not and cannot kill him, so you are forced to use the rail cannon on him by pushing in the remaining 2 batteries. After that is done, just line Nemesis up and boom! He's done for, will be a pile of meat. But wait, he's still alive, and the game will give you one final life selection before the ending. Exterminate the monster, or simply just leave, to him to get blown up by the incoming missile. I always pick exterminate personally because Jill has my favorite line by her in this game.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
The other boss fight is the Gravedigger, aka the Giant Worm. The first time you encounter him is after it triggers an earthquake, causing Jill to fall through a hole on the way back to the tram after getting every part you need to repair it. You cannot kill it with traditional weapons here, so the only thing you can do is hit a couple switches quickly and make sure it doesn't hit you, and using the ladder to get out the area. When you actually do fight it, you encounter it in the graveyard. I know that's pretty obvious. And it pretty much just burrows underground trying to strike you as it emerges from the dirt. During the fight, it'll actually emerge itself completely out of the ground and attempt to fight you before burrowing again. Eventually, after you do enough damage to it, the light poles will flicker a bit, and you are able to knock both of them down. The second the Gravedigger crosses over the electrified puddle, he is deep fried and dies instantly. You can kill it with traditional weapons, but why would you? Seriously, just save the ammo and move on, and watch it barbecue. Past that, Resident Evil 3 has my favorite soundtrack in the series, but I will admit that it is debatable if it is the overall best. I honestly believe that the City of Ruin track is the best piece of music ever put into a Resident Evil game. Some excellent standouts would be Watch Your Back, Doom City, The City Without Hope, Nemesis Doesn't Give Up. hellish agony. Carlos theme. And of course, the safe room theme. And then obviously the Nemesis themes, they all go hard too, but I already mentioned those earlier. This game also has a unique dodge feature where if you aim and shoot your gun right before an enemy's attack hits you, Jill will evade the attack. This has always been a bit tricky for me to do personally, so I do not rely on it, since if you do it wrong you can end up taking damage and, worst case scenario, getting stunned like to death. Still, it'll activate on its own even if it wasn't your intention to do so, and it usually works out for me anyway. And the cast itself is very likable in my opinion. It's only right that I start out with the main character, Jill. Look, I love this iteration of her. She is literally the perfect female protagonist in gaming. Jill is shown to take initiative to keep pressing forward from the start of the game, where she tries to convince Dario to leave the warehouse since it isn't safe.
Okay, we've got to get out of here.
What? What do you think you're talking about? I just lost my daughter out there! How dare you tell me to go back outside?
I'm sorry about your daughter, but there isn't gonna be any rescue. We have to get out of here!
After meeting Nikolai and Carlos, she agrees to their plan to get the tram running and ends up single-handedly fixing it herself. When Carlos is losing his cool due to the fear of impending doom, she smacks him in the face to knock some sense into him.
I'm not sure how we're gonna get out of this town.
What are you talking about? We made it!
You don't get it. They have no intention of letting us make it back alive. Do you really think we can trust their great evacuation plan? Huh, it's just a piece of paper.
But we don't have any other choice than to trust them right now.
No, if we're gonna die, then we should get to choose when it happens.
So that's it then, huh? You're giving up?
No. I can't handle it.
In today's era, This could be probably offensive, but the context is that Carlos was talking about offing himself, and she was not having it under those circumstances. She needed him to stay focused. This behavior is consistent with her throughout the game, and even though she was running through the city streets moving from location to location, she still stayed focused, resilient, and most importantly, efficient. The sexist people will say this kind of woman is not realistic, and I disagree. Women can be highly trained at fixing things, wielding weapons, and learn how to defend themselves just as men can. And Jill got the best of the best training she could get in her region and perhaps even nationwide. The only female officer in the STARS unit for the Raccoon Police Department. Oh yeah, and her fashion sense is incredible too. If you ever see this, thank you so much, Catherine Disher. Your voice and your talent to bring life to Jill Valentine is truly appreciated, and I hope you are properly compensated. Next is the first character you see Jill speaking to, Dario. Dario is just a regular man going through everyday life with his wife and daughter when the outbreak happened. He unfortunately witnessed both of them being eaten by zombies, and judging off of his body language and actions, it broke him. He locks himself inside of a trailer hoping that he starves to death before zombies actually get to him.
No! I'm not going anywhere. I'd rather starve to death in here than be eaten by one of those undead monsters! Now leave me alone!
Unfortunately, when we return to this area later, we find Dario dead outside of the trailer, yet on the other side of the warehouse. Zombies are feasting on him, and that marks the end of Dario. It's kind of sad since you could see he tried to get away at the last second, but ultimately, it failed, and he died a painful death. Now we got Carlos. Carlos is one of the mercenaries sent by Umbrella to take care and rescue civilians. This is what he was told, so Carlos is determined to get the job done. He is a very likable guy, and he has some great quotes like these right here.
Wait, I have to ask you something.
I know. You want to ask me out? All the foxy ladies love my accent. It drives them crazy.
What? Keep dreaming.
Look, we're just mercenaries, hired hands. Do you really think the master would tell his dogs why they have to retrieve the stick he just threw?
Hey, calm down.
Any objections to my playing hero this time?
What are you doing?
Relax, I'm not dead yet.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. That hero stuff is harder than it looks.
But we can rest now.
No, we're the only ones left. There's no rest for the wicked.
As you can see, Carlos has riz. All that aside, Carlos is truly there to help civilians and he has no ulterior motive. However, his mind is broken when he realizes that the chances of him and any other survivor escaping alive is slim to none. All he can think about is the missile hitting the city, eradicating everything at dawn, and he is stuck inside of a barricade city with some flimsy evacuation plan that doesn't look promising. He makes it out with Jill, but the man was rightfully stressed. Still, he is probably my second favorite support character after Barry because I really liked him years ago and I still like him now. One of the other Umbrella mercs was Mikhail. He was injured off screen before we run into him and actually meet him, and the experience left him unfortunately traumatized. He is having nightmares in his sleep, and his injuries may prove to be fatal if he doesn't get medical attention in time.
They're coming. Get ready. Fire. Fire. Stay together.
Calm down. You're safe now. Everything is gonna be okay.
There's not really much to say about him, but he does have two of my favorite cutscenes in the game. The first is optional since you have to return to the tram before you get all the items to repair it completely. When you return, he will be shooting zombies. He rolls a barrel into them, and then he has a heartfelt convo with Jill about his struggles.
Mikhail, do you have some kind of death wish?
My people, they were wiped out by these monsters. I can't stop just because I'm wounded.
But can't you see those monsters are also the victims of Umbrella?
Are you accusing me of taking it out on them? You don't seem to understand something. We're not really involved with the company. There's no reason for any of us to take responsibility for this mess.
I know that. And right now that's the only reason why I'm trying to cooperate with you.
Sorry. I feel so useless.
Don't. You fought hard and have the wounds to prove it.
But I'm still alive. My men aren't.
Don't think about that now. Just rest.
A lot of players miss this cutscene, including myself for years, but it is truly underrated, and I hardly see anybody mention it when speaking on this game. The other cutscene is when Nemesis breaks onto the tram right after you get it moving. Jill leaves after Mikhail tells her to, and he ends up sacrificing his life by blowing himself up with a grenade when Nemesis is getting ready for the kill. We didn't get much info about Mikhail in this game, but what we did get was some badass scenes and another reminder that Raccoon City is really nightmarish as well as dangerous, and surviving it will be far from an easy task. The final Umbrella merc that's actually introduced to us directly is Nikolai. He comes off as extremely apprehensive about Jill surviving the outbreak and sharing their plans to evacuate safely from the city. This was always suspicious to me since Carlos had just told us prior to meeting Nikolai that the Umbrella merc's primary objective was to rescue and evacuate civilians. So that was the first red flag. As the story progresses, Carlos realizes that Nikolai is a snake that kills his team members, like killing a fellow mercenary that unfortunately got infected without hesitation.
Wait!
What did you do?
I had no choice. He was about to turn into a zombie. It would have been a threat, so I eliminated it.
But he was still conscious, wasn't he?
He was as good as dead. And it took fewer bullets to kill him now than it would have if he had transformed.
And then later gunning down Tyrell in the hospital before turning his gun onto Carlos.
Don't shoot! No!
Nikolai? You're still alive?
You saw what happened?
What's going on?
I'm one of the supervisors.
That's all you need to know.
Wait!
Nikolai attempts to kill Jill in the dead factory and unveils his reasoning for turning on his team and the survivors. You see, Nikolai likes money. No, that's an understatement. Nikolai he's infatuated with money. It has it in his head that if he is the lone survivor, then he will get more money from his employers. In one branching path, he actually gets killed by Nemesis after attempting to kill Jill in the dead factory. However, in the other branching path, he beats Jill to a helicopter and attempts to kill her with the machine guns attached to the chopper. He then rides off into the night, never to be seen again. You probably are wondering, who is Tyrell? Well, he is an umbrella merc that got betrayed by Nikolai in the hospital. On the first branching path, he opens up a safe file explaining how he got his gunshot wound to Carlos, implying it was Nikolai who shot him. As soon as he unlocks the safe, he sees a bomb about to go off and loses his life to the explosion. The other branching path is the one I spoke on earlier. On the 4th floor of the hospital, Carlos enters a room and immediately hears gunshots. He runs over to investigate and see a severely wounded Tyrell sitting against the wall with Nikolai standing over him. After Nikolai exposes his deception to Carlos, Tyrell uses this brief window to take out a grenade and blow himself up, leaving Carlos to run away and Nikolai to leap out of a nearby window. Resident Evil 3 is a very open-ended game, especially when it comes to the city streets, and depending on the items you pick up or areas you go to first, it can trigger a character interaction, some dialogue, or even a hidden area. For example, the way that you meet Carlos would directly affect the gas station and sales office cutscenes. When you get past the construction site, you will hear a man firing gunshots and running towards the restaurant. After you go to the restaurant and unlock the manhole, Carlos will appear behind you and speak with you, introducing himself. Nemesis will show up and you have the option of running into the basement or hiding in the back of the cafe. If you choose to hide in the basement, then after you escape through a vent, there will be a brief cutscene which abruptly ends after you both get swarmed by zombies. Later on, when you make it to the gas station and gain access to it, Nikolai will appear but will barely speak with you and head to the garage. Eventually, after you finish the puzzle, a wire sparks in the garage and Nikolai is caught in an explosion, seemingly dying. Now, let's backtrack a bit. If you decide to not go to the restaurant after Carlos, you can cut through the alley that is infested with zombies. After braving through the monstrosities, you will eventually reach the newspaper building with Carlos on the ground unconscious. After he regains consciousness, you will have a brief conversation, and Nemesis shows up. After opening up City Hall and making your way to the gas station, instead of Nikolai showing up, Carlos will show up. Before you can solve the puzzle, Carlos panics and zombies are beginning to shuffle towards the gas station, so he leaves to fight them head on. Do you see what I mean? This is just one example, and there are a few more examples that can alter a playthrough a bit, or simply give you extra dialogue, or a cutscene that you never heard or seen before. The game was just ahead of its time. To take it a step further, depending on how you do things, certain key items will be in a different location. So, to gain access to the city hall, you need a green and blue diamond. You get the blue diamond earlier in the game from the police station, but the green diamond can be in one or two places depending on if you go to the restaurant or the newspaper office first. So, if you go to the newspaper office first, the green diamond will be on a corpse in the basement of the restaurant, and the basement will have 4 to 5 zombies in it. On the other hand, if you go to the restaurant first, then the green diamond will be on the top floor of the newspaper building on the desk. But be careful, because as you leave, Nemesis will be right there waiting for you, and sometimes sprinting towards you. Another thing that changes the game is the live selection cutscenes. Depending on what the choice is, this too can alter your playthrough. The game pretty much just kind of freezes or moves in slow motion a little, and then the screen will flash and kind of like your controller will vibrate, and it just feels like a very dire choice every single time, even the minor ones. You know, the presentation was flawless in the execution of this. And this is the main thing that Resident Evil 3 brought to the table that was never ever replicated again, or even teased to be replicated again in future Resident Evil games. Not even a remake, which was a huge missed opportunity in my opinion. When you make it to the dead factory at the end of the game, you will find Nemesis waiting for you. He'll shoot his tentacles through the bridge from below it, and then use his tentacles to jump onto the bridge and corner Jill. At this moment, you have two choices: push the monster off of the bridge, or jump off of the bridge yourself to escape the monster. Whichever you choose will directly affect the final cutscenes of the game as well as the ending. If you push Nemesis off the bridge, Nikolai will attempt to kill Jill by gunfire, but instead Nemesis will kill Nikolai before a boss fight in the landfill area. This will lock you out in the ending with Barry as well. But at the same time, if you jump off of the bridge, then Nikolai will beat you to the chopper and you are given another live selection choice. Negotiate with him or retaliate with, firepower your own. The ending will have the pilot of the escape chopper being Barry, and I consider this the better ending of the game, but that's just me.
Thanks, you saved us.
I couldn't let you die.
Is it you?
Are you ready to finish this?
It's coming!
Yeah. It's the end.
That's it. Umbrella's going down.
Some ammo and weapons locations can be a bit different as well. The main one is the grenade launcher or the magnum spawning in the weapons locker in the RPD. Whichever weapon spawns in the locker will determine what weapon will be at the substation later. Basically, if the magnum spawns in the police locker, then down the line the grenade launcher will be at the substation. Also, ammo powders are in slightly altered locations depending on the playthrough, allowing for more ambiguity for multiple playthroughs. Ammo powders are usually A and B types when you find them, but they can be mixed with each other or combined with more ammo powder of the same type you find throughout the game to create ammo, obviously. With the reloading tool you start with, if you play your cards right, you can grab handgun, shotgun, magnum, and various grenade launcher ammos throughout the game and almost never be in danger of running low on ammo. This also allows for you to switch up your playstyle a bit and not be at the mercy of in-universe drops for ammo. The weapon variety is among the best in the series since nearly everything is here from previous games except for the bowgun, and let me say this, I like the bowgun a lot, but I don't care if it's included or not, respectfully. Oh, and Jill doesn't have a traditional flamethrower, but she does get flame rounds for her grenade launcher, which serves the same purpose. On average, once you know where to go and aren't speedrunning, you can beat the game in around 3 hours, but that's including the cutscenes. Without the cutscenes, it will be a little under 2.5 hours. I think my fastest speedrun as a team was around an hour and a half or so, and Leon A and RE2 was like an hour and 15 minutes, around there. I know these times aren't world records by any means. I'm just trying to give everybody my personal records to show you that the original RE3's scenario was a little bit longer than just one RE2 scenario. The game is highly replayable due to this, and it's honestly one of my favorite games to replay in the series at the drop of a hat. Resident Evil 3 has 8 epilogues on what various characters are up to after the events of RE3, featuring Jill, Chris, Leon, Sherry, Ada, Barry, Claire, and Hunk, aka Mr. Death. These epilogues set up the next installment in the series, and since you unlock one at the end of each playthrough, that means that you had to beat the game 8 times to see them all, since the internet was in its baby stages in the early 2000s. There is just so many things that you can miss even on multiple playthroughs. I remember on one playthrough over a decade after my first playthrough, I was fighting Nemesis with Carlos and decided to use the pistol to sandbag him. He left the initial hall and I followed him. I had never seen it before. He would fight me briefly in the dining room and then run into the next room. Again, I never saw this before. Now he is attacking Jill's door, which I never seen once again. So I allowed him to break it down, and well, Jill died in one of the more brutal deaths in the game. The game also introduces the Mercenaries mode to the series. Although in this Mercenaries mode, your body is implanted with a bomb, and you have to make it from the tram all the way to the warehouse that you start at with Jill in the main game. As you kill enemies, you can unlock more time towards the timer, and rescuing survivors also adds more time as well. Along the way, each area you are familiar with has different enemy spawns to them from the base game. And notice how there are hunters here, and yeah, I died here. Embarrassing. No matter how far you make it through the map, you will be compensated with money plus given a letter grade for your performance. This money can be used to buy infinite ammo for the assault rifle, rocket launcher, Gatling gun, or you can save up all the money you can to get all your weapons infinite ammo. It's a fun mode in my opinion, and it's cool to see the initial mode for Mercenaries and what they had in store for it before it evolved into what it is in Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. Jill also has a good number of costumes, with 5 from the original release on PlayStation 1 and then a couple more on the Dreamcast version. And I think I covered just about everything I wanted to say about why Resident Evil 3 is my favorite game in the series. I always have a blast with it from start to finish, and on my annual playthroughs I always look forward to replaying this after the original Resident Evil 2. What do you all think about the original Resident Evil 3? Did you play it back in the day when it was only on the PlayStation 1? Did you enjoy it? Do you consider it to be the weakest in the original trilogy or the overall best, at least from that era? Maybe overall, but what do you think? What do you think about Jill, Carlos, and the rest of the cast? Do you enjoy feeling helpless and hopeless in the Raccoon City streets? Seemingly just out in the open for every monster to see, smell, know where you are, and come after you. Let me know how you feel about the game down below in the comment section. I'm curious as to what everybody thinks, whether they enjoyed the game or not, whether you loved it, whether you hated it, whether you thought it was overrated, underrated. Leave your thoughts down below, because I know this game has mixed opinions, but I love the game. It's a flawless 10 out of 10 to me. Oh yeah, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're watching this and aren't subscribed. I plan on making videos about all the main Resident Evil games since it's my favorite series, but I will touch on other game series that's among my favorites down the line, so stay tuned for that. Also do music. I'm not saying I'm gonna drop music, but just speaking on music topics and then throw in some real talk every once in a while. But yeah, also like the video to help more people see the video, so more people that actually enjoy the series can see it and, you know, appreciate the game, maybe reminisce and go down memory lane with it. And then, you know, share the video to wherever you want, because I mean the YouTube algorithm only does so much. So with your help, more eyes can see it, more engagement, and then I can grow. I appreciate you. And yeah, much love everybody. Y'all be safe, and Face signing out.